Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about a pretty big change that Blizzard is planning on making in patch 7.1 in regards to raiding add-ons and how those add-ons function in raids. And I do want to emphasize something right now, is that this change is only going to be affecting raids, dungeons, and competitive instances. Everywhere outside of those, as far as I know, nothing is really going to change. So basically what they're going to be doing is that they're going to be disabling and removing the access of add-ons in those raids, dungeons, and competitive instances to determine in real time where your place is in the 3D world, or I guess a better way to put it for this video would just be the boss room, and then it can determine where you are in that boss room and then tell you to go to another place in the boss room by usage of an arrow, and the closer you get, the closer it tells you are, and as soon as you get there it tells you you're exactly where you are. So there's not really a whole lot of guesswork that you have to make or anything like that. It kind of does in a lot of ways cheapen the encounter, and I guess definitely because people are using the add-on, it obviously makes it a lot easier. So Blizzard has decided that they think that that is a little bit too easy, or they don't really like the functionality or the way people use those add-ons. I agree with this. I've been very outspoken before that I think that the raids and the dungeons I believe there are too many mechanics that happen in them for the average player. Obviously for me, a Mythic Raider, I played the game for 10 years, it's not a big fucking deal, right? But for somebody who might not really have that same longitudinal knowledge, or might not really have, a perfect computer to do raids on, I think that some of the raids are just a little bit too hard. I think we've moved to the point right now, especially in Hellfire Citadel, for example, that you're not really trying to avoid all of the mechanics, but you're just trying to decide which mechanics you're going to fuck up on. And whenever you get to that point, I think that there's some sort of breakdown in terms of like how you treat mechanics and how you treat the boss fight. And whenever you do that, it seems like you do lose a little bit of the severity and the, I don't know, it seems kind of stupid. That's basically what it comes down to. So the reason I think this is a good idea is because I think that they should do more things to lessen the gap of things that players have to do outside of the game in order to prepare for what they do inside of the game. So an example for this is I do think that they should have a better in-game voice chat system. And I do think that they should make the abilities in raids telegraph a lot better. And that means that players don't need to actually have an add-on, and things can happen in the raid, and you can immediately react to them without having the usage of any third-party tools or anything like that. With that's in Diablo. Siegecrafter in not Hellfire Citadel. No, I just thought that because they both lasted for over a year. But no, in what was it? Siege of Orgrimmar. In Siege of Orgrimmar, you kind of needed an add-on. I thought there was a gecko up there, but it was actually just. No, it's nothing. Actually, it's a shadow. Oh, great. So anyway, you needed basically the usage of an add-on to do the belts, and you didn't really need it. Of course, you didn't really need it, but it did help out a lot. And so the more that Blizzard allows you players to understand the mechanics and the bosses just by looking at them, I think the better and the more rewarding players are going to feel, the more rewarded players are going to feel for being able to avoid those mechanics. If you see something happening and you move out of it, I think that makes you feel a little bit better rather than you just have an add-on pop up and it tells you move or something like that with an arrow, and you just move over to the arrow. I do think that does diminish a little bit of the success. Now, obviously, they do run the risk of making some of the bosses more difficult. Obviously, at this point in 7.0, Kromrok and Kromog are both fucking jokes, right? So it doesn't really matter if they make those bosses harder or not, especially by the time 7.1 comes out, because everybody's going to have like 1,000,000 health, right? So it doesn't matter. But before that, I could say that this would be kind of an issue. I'm kind of curious and a little bit skeptical to see how this is going to happen, because 7.1 is going to happen in the middle of the raid tier between the Nighthold and the Emerald Nightmare. So some bosses, I think that one example of this is the Star Augur. I'm not really sure because I haven't done a lot of raid testing, but my understanding is the Star Augur is one of those bosses that having one of these like placement tools makes it significantly easier, and so not having that and then taking that away in the middle of the progression race, and I guess not really progression race, but in the middle of the tier, will kind of hurt some guilds and kind of punish them overly for not really entirely mastering that fight beforehand. But at the end of the day, I do think that this is a good idea, because I do think that Blizzard should focus on making the abilities telegraph better on the boss fights. That's another big thing with having like really, really big bosses, because it's really hard to tell what's specifically happening. And I do think that Hellfire Citadel did a pretty good job at doing that. Some examples that I don't really think are very good in terms of telegraphing. I think that what's it, Blitz, whenever the not Fel Reaver, but the second boss in HFC, the whatever the fuck it is, whenever it does Blitz, it's kind of hard to tell where exactly she's pointing. And also whenever Fel Lord Zakun, yeah, I think it's Fel Lord Zakun, does his waves of destruction, it's kind of also hard to determine where exactly he's facing. So if they can try, and I know that for some people they might say, oh, that's very, very easy, but at least from my perspective, I think it's kind of unclear. Now, I don't really get killed by it a lot, but at the same time, I do think it's kind of unclear. So making boss mechanics more clear to just a player that's looking at them rather than needing an add-on, I think will be a more rewarding experience for everyone, and will lessen the gap between players who know pretty much everything about the game and played the game for 10 years, always have the updated add-ons, always have everything set up with their raids, and also the people who are just kind of coming into raiding and trying to understand things. I always like to make things challenging and difficult, but making them difficult doesn't mean making them, I guess, like, unable, like, people, you have to have a certain amount of knowledge that's outside of the game in order to succeed in the game. I think that at a certain point, that is not really rewarding and it's not really fun. So anyway, guys, that's what I think. I'm kind of curious to see what other people think. I know that some people disagree with me, and I can understand that. But there have been a lot of different announcements with Legion, but I think that this specific thing, I guess, like, it was the main thing that I saw that I think really mattered. So that's why I wanted to make a video about it and talk to you guys about it. So I am curious to hear what you guys have to say. To me, it seems kind of, well, it reminds me a lot, before I end this, I actually am very glad I remember this comparison. Back in ICC, there was an add-on called AVR, and this add-on basically allowed you to, I guess, like, through the physics engine or through some sort of physics, or I don't really know how it worked, right? It was still over 5 years ago. But it allowed you to pretty much determine where different things that are coming down in the room are going to be. So it would place like a big circle around like where Festergrat would put down a pool of slime, so you would know exactly where to stand outside of that pool of slime, so you could do as much DPS as possible. And Blizzard just kind of decided that they would break that add-on because it just trivialized so many different mechanics in the instance. It was so much required for players to have it, and also having it just made the boss fights just very, very simple and kind of basically just like patchwork. So anyway, guys, this reminds me a lot of that, and so I could see them treating this like AVR, which is basically what they're doing, as potentially a good thing. I think that them getting rid of AVR in ICC, especially because that fucking instance was easy, especially getting rid of it then, I think was a good idea. And so we'll see how this changes rating in 7.1. I personally think it's a good idea in terms of the philosophy of it. Now, will the implementation be good? We're going to have to find out. But at least from now, I do think that they're looking in the right direction. So anyway, guys, I'm curious to hear what you guys think, but that's pretty much it. So thank you for watching, and like, comment, subscribe.